Just over 40 years ago, Hayao Miyazaki wrote and directed the beautiful film called Nausicaä, the Valley of the Wind. It's a story about a small village that lives next to a toxic jungle that is slowly taking over the world. The humans of this world must learn to either live with the toxic jungle and the creatures that live in it, or to try and fight back. Today I'll be recreating one of my favorite scenes from the film, and potentially some minor spoilers in the next few seconds. In this scene, we find Nausicaä, our main character in blue, in a secret underground garden that she's been creating. She's been going out and exploring the toxic jungle and bringing back spores to cultivate. Normally, all of these plants on the surface are extremely toxic and you can't even breathe the air that's around them. But down here, Nausicaä has been watering them with deep underground well water, and that has made these plants no longer toxic, so it's safe to breathe the air. I start this project with a pre-made wooden craft frame from the craft store, and I've made a little blueprint here to help me get all the sizes right. My main building material is going to be this foam core, and I'm going to cut it up into all the shapes I need. Once I have all the pieces I need cut out, I can start to put them together, and that means taking off all the paper from both sides of the foam core. Here I'm using foam safe superglue to glue everything together. This stuff is a bit more expensive than normal superglue, but it's the only superglue that won't melt this foam. It's a little too squishy right now, so I'm adding these bracers inside to keep everything in shape. And then I just repeat that step over and over until I finish all of the pieces. I draw out some of the floor details with a pencil, and then I'll use a file to cut them into shape. My cuts and measurements were not totally perfect, so there's a bit I have to clean up with some sandpaper. I use a heat gun to close some of the cells on the foam and get it ready for painting. Speaking of painting, my first coat of paint is actually just a mix of water and Mod Podge, and I coat everything with that to create a good seal for my first layers of actual paint. Once that layer is dry, I can start gluing everything in place. It was around this point where I realized that I had glued my pieces in the wrong spot, but since they were super glued down, I couldn't really do anything, so I had to add this extra piece. I don't really mind though, because I'm not going for movie accuracy here, I'm just making it as best as I can with the materials that I have. I'm coating the interior seams with more of that watered down Mod Podge, because I'm going to be pouring some plaster of Paris in later and I don't want it to leak out. I'm using plaster because it's cheap and it dries relatively quickly, And I want a solid base because I know I'm going to be drilling and adding a lot of the fungus and spores in later on, and they need a good base to sit on. In the scene, Nausicaä is sitting at a table, so I build a small one out of some styrene and some chipboard, and some little wooden dowels for the legs. I also build a little stool and a nice little book, again with some paper and some of that chipboard. I'm using a few of these plastic tube connectors to build the lantern that's sitting on the table. And because they're hollow, I can thread my tiny little LEDs through and I can make it glow. For the feather quill, I thought I would use a pipe cleaner and a straightener. And I am wearing a mask here and my door is open because this is plastic after all. But I melt it into a flat little piece, and then with a bit of trimming and cutting, I have the basic shape of a feather quill. I can finally start to make all the toxic jungle plants. And what I'm making here is not exactly from the film. A lot of these are just what I thought looked cool and what I thought fit in the theme of the film. And these are just mostly beads threaded onto various sizes of wire. I also start to integrate some puffballs into the mix. These little puffballs already look like weird little fungus spores, so they're perfect. I'm also using pipe cleaners because I think they already look like alien plants, and that's just less work for me. I especially love these pipe cleaners. These are some of my favorites, and again, they're absolutely perfect for this. Adding even more mediums to the mix, I also use hot glue to create some coral-like structures. And these are the tips of Q-tips that I've cut off and I'm gluing to a wooden bead. This was an old sponge brush that I'm ripping up into a more natural shape. I'm also using parts of this natural painter's sponge because it has some cool texture. I try to make plants of various sizes because I know I want that layering effect and I need small ones and large ones. I'm also using this old paintbrush here because I think, again, it has another cool texture. This is EVA foam clay and I'm going to use it to build a couple of large mushroom-looking stalk things. I'm using that same flattening iron technique as before on the larger pipe cleaners, and I think this gives a cool fern effect. And now that that first layer of plaster is dry, I can add the second layer up to the final line. All the plants get a coat of watered down Mod Podge, and this gives me a good first layer to paint on. I know I may have some gaps in the plants later, so I'm making a bunch of these pre-coated puffballs to fill those gaps if I need them. The painting for this project is relatively straightforward, so I'm going to leave you without my voice for a while, and I'll come back in when I need to. Enjoy the painting. This clear material I'm using is UV resin, and I'm adding layer upon layer, curing it with a UV light in between, and then on the final layer I'm curing it in front of the UV light and pulling it up with this little stick to give me a point like the top of a flame. I can then start to drill and poke holes in the plaster and add all of the plants that I made. This was a really fun step because besides just a few of these plants, I didn't really know where all of these were going to go, so I had to sort of build this garden as I was putting it together, which was a lot of fun. As the project nears completion, I paint the sides black, finish up all the wiring inside to make sure that that lamp glows, and then it's pretty much done. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like, consider subscribing. I've got so many other videos on my channel that I'm sure you'll love. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, put them down in the comment section and I'll try to get back to you. I will leave links in the description below to a lot of the tools and materials that I used during these builds. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video.